So here are the standings. Teams 1 through 7 still in it. Alright, so I highlighted Joe, Dale, and Ray's team because I think based on the scoring after this week, it'll come down to those three for the final spot. Alright, so like I said, teams 1 through 7, it's going to come down to, I really think in the next week, Joe, Dale, and Ray. Based on the point totals, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think you get a point for every win and half a point for every tie. So, first off, let's start off with the two top teams that clinched their seed. Congrats, fucking Viola Nation, Team AJ. And their season winner isn't over yet. It's going to go into next week as well. So for Adam, he is down this week, and AJ is barely hanging on to his. But if AJ can close out against Chewy, that will put him in first with 14 wins, and Adam will be at 13. But AJ has to win out next week. Adam's got a favorable matchup. I'm sorry, Carlos. You are the 14th seed. So Adam has a good shot of getting a win next week. So AJ has to win out in order to secure that season top seed prize money. But what's even more at stake in that matchup for next week is that AJ plays Dale, and that kind of takes me to where those Dale, Ray, and Joe point totals will really determine how things line up. So Joe with the points, Joe right now is at 11 points plus 2 ties, which would put him at 12 points. And if he does lose this week, he'll stay at 12 points. I'm at 10 and 3 ties, which puts me at 11.5 points. And if I close out my win against Alejandro, that'll put me at 12.5. And I think that 12.5 mark is what secures 3 through 6. So Lewis, if he wins this week, which he's got a good lead on Adam, that'll put him at 11 wins, 2 ties, which is another point, so that'd be a total of 12 points. Dale playing Eric this week, and he's got a good lead on him. That'll give him 11.5 points. Ray, who's winning this week against David, I think, will give him 11 points. So, where I'm going with this is, if Ray can win next week, that'll put him at 12 points. If Dale wins this week and next week, that'll put him at 12.5 points. If Joe loses this week and wins next week, that'll put him at 13 points. So, and if Lewis wins next week, he will be at 13 points because he's going to get a win for this week. That's 11 plus the 2 ties, it's 12, and then a win next week, that's 13. That 12.5 mark, I think, is what's going to come down to. So if Joe loses this week and next week, and Ray wins out, Joe falls out. Dale has to win out too, because if Dale loses, he will be at 11.5 points with a win this week and a loss next week. So that Joe, Dale, and Ray, their matchups next week are really going to see who gets that 5 and 6 spot. I think if I close out this win at 12.5 points, I think I secure a spot, because the best Ray could do is 12 points. And with 12.5 points, I think I will get the 6th spot if I lose next week to Moy. Now, what's another thing about next week is that Dale plays AJ. And if AJ beats Dale, he can knock him out of contention, because Dale only have 11.5 points. And AJ needs that win to solidify the season, because Adam's got a favorable matchup against Carlos. So, Dale wins next week. He can knock AJ out of the season winner, but solidify possibly the 6th or 5th spot, depending on what Joe does next week. Joe wins next week, he's in the playoffs. Joe loses next week, and Ray wins and Dale wins, because Joe has a loss next week and will have 12 points, and Ray will have a win next week and have 12 points, because he has the most recent win, I think he will jump Joe and go into that 6th spot. Joe will drop to 7. So Ray plays, I think, Alejandro next week. Joe plays Eric. Dale plays, I think Dale plays AJ, and I think Lewis plays Chewy. And Adam plays Beckless, and I play Moy. So again, 1 through 7 still have big, possible results based on next week. That's why I think it's good to start these videos now, because next week is almost like playoff week 1. 1 through 7 are still in it. Sorry, 8 through 14. You guys still up for some money, Dale said, for the consolation bracket. So again, I might be wrong, but I think a win gets you a point in terms of ranking. A tie gets you half a point. That's why a couple times during the season, late in the season, some people had more wins than others, but the people that might not had the more wins had less losses and had ties, so they were above them in the standings. So total points came out where they came up above. Even though they had more wins, the ties put them over those people in terms of total points. But again, tell me if I'm wrong. So 1 through 7, big ramifications for next week. This is almost playoff week 1. It's going to be interesting how it plays out. Again, I'm sorry, Ray, real talk, but we don't want you in the playoffs. You have Altuve, Trout, Scherzer, Nola, JD. You beat me twice next week, and if you get that 6th spot and I somehow hold that 3 spot, I'm playing you in the first round, and I lost you twice this season. So real talk, Ray, do not want you to make the playoffs. Joe, you got to win next week. It's a must win for you. I think Lewis, with the win this week, secures his spot. Dale needs to win out, but could cost AJ. AJ needs to win out to win the season. If somehow if Adam loses this week, I don't know if he can come back. But Adam's still in line to win the season. So big week next week. So we'll see how it plays out. All right, guys. So I hope you guys, like what I did here. I'm gonna keep doing the videos. Again, if you want to talk shit, I expect it, but I'm really hyped up. It's gonna be fucking kick-ass playoffs, and I'm even gonna do a little bit of the consolation bracket update, because you guys can fucking win money for that shit. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if Ray paying a lot with the trades he made and the money he put up will pay off, or could it blow up? I don't know. Dale, who was down most of the front of the season, fucking DL bug hit him hard, but he's fucking somehow made his way back into contention. Adam, repeat champion. We got Porras Brothers. We got the Guyon Boys, and it's gonna be fucking kick-ass. So I'm gonna keep making these videos. I'm gonna try at the end of the matchup week, and then doing a projection matchup video on Monday, looking at each team, what each team brings to the table, how the matchups kind of looking at both sides of each team, and how they kind of, how they match up, how they stack up against each other, who's got the strengths, who's got an advantage in certain areas. And I just want to hype this shit up. So if you want to jump in on this, let me know. But I'm going to keep them coming. Let's fucking get this playoffs, baby.